My name is Sharon Crandall, and I am a personality manager. Today I am going to talk about how your brain is wired for change. There are lots of videos out there with some of the latest research on how the brain works, and I have to tell you that this knowledge that I'm bringing you today is new to you, but it's been around since the 30s. But it hasn't been widespread information. So your personality was formed before you were born. It is your genetic influence. There are more than 50 personality traits that tell you how all these traits work together to form your unique personality. These traits reside in 5 areas of the brain, and each has a physical characteristic counterpart. That means there's traits in your nose, in your chin, in your head, and everything. So this is the key to your personality. The traits have the potential of being either constructive or destructive, as you choose. So you are born to act a certain way and to have those tendencies, but you are not locked into it. Although there's a lot of people that say, well, this is the way I am and I can't help it and I'm not going to change, and so there. Well, that's not a good idea, because that's not true. Actually, God gave you a brain, and every trait has a choice within that. So there is a built-in point that it's like there's a thought that comes into your brain, oftentimes accompanied by a feeling too. And so that's what makes you inclined to behave a certain way. Even though your environment teaches you certain things, you are actually digesting that through your trait. So the trait influences how you assimilate those behaviors, okay? And so there's this point of choice, and we have a score that we give people on a trait. And if you're like up in the higher third, or if you're down in the lower third, then it just means that you have a more pronounced inclination to behave a certain way. If you have the verbal traits, and the verbal traits are in the mouth area, and let's say you have the traits of verbose, which is the tendency to use a lot of words. Then you have impetuous, which is a tendency to speak before you really think. And then you have loquacious, which is you easily express your feelings. And then if you add that, which is in another area, but it's a trait that can influence this, you have low tactfulness. That means you're not very tactful. Then you can be sure that people are going to know how you feel, when you feel it, and so on. On the other hand, if you are opposite on those same traits, they're going to be having a hard time to get something out of you at all on how you feel or what you think. So you've got the traits on one side to make you really, really verbal, and then just the opposite. If you have those cluster of traits, now some people are more balanced in their traits. They don't have a lot of clusters. They have a more even personality, and they don't have such extremes in their personality. So the first thing we look at when we do a profile is we look at the higher scores and the lower scores, because that tells you more of the extreme of your personality. Now, I want you to think about this. Then all the cells for a behavior of a certain trait are already there. They just have to be activated. And so they are activated then through choice. So let's say you have the trait to procrastinate. And so you want to change that. So what you do is you call on the trait that is part of you that would help you to be on time and get things done in a timely manner and so on. So you can call on that trait and you can say, okay, I need to have the get the job done trait instead of procrastinating. And then you can do that. And your body already knows then what it means because it knows what these traits are. And so if you're calling on the other side, then that helps you to override the negative side of your trait. Let's say a person is inclined to be very thrifty, or they inclined to be very generous and giving. So let's say this person is generous, and they never lose that gift of being generous, but they can also call on the thrifty side of the trait. Now, the way that it works to your advantage is you want to be more thrifty instead of generous. Well, your body is just going to say, no, I'm generous, even though you say, oh, I'm very thrifty, and through physical willpower, you say, okay, I'm thrifty, I'm going to do this. And yes, that can help, but it helps better if you say, okay, I can be more generous if I'm better with money. Then I can be more generous to people and not just spend money when I don't need to. And so your body says, oh, wow, that's a good idea. I can be more generous. So you actually are going to be more generous by taking care of the negative side of the trait. That is a very important key in making a change, and your brain is wired to do that. We just need to learn how to work with our brain in order to make the change and make it quicker and easier. Now, some people think that they can do anything they want to do with their traits, which you can, but there's really a gift to the traits that you have, and it's kind of foolish to try to really go against those traits just because you think you should or want to or whatever. I mean, sometimes you have to, because in your work you're working a certain way, and you have to adapt. But to be really good at what you do, you're better off to work with the traits that you have. For instance, if you are an outdoor person and a physical person, yeah, you can work in an office, but do you want to? I mean, really. So sometimes if you have to for a while, and you can adapt, because we are adaptable. But we never get over that need or that inclination to behave a certain way. And so it's so much better if you go ahead and plan your life to utilize your traits, because you're more efficient, you like it, you're happier, and everybody else is happier around you because you're not complaining about your job and so on. And you just do a better job. It's just better. Learning how to work with your traits so that you can change is a really good thing. Now, we also have mood swings, which means that you have a feeling of expression in one side and then another. And that I've already talked about in other videos, and probably will be doing more on mood swings. But in the meantime, I want you to think that you are wired to change. And it's really quite simple, not easy. I didn't say easy, because every time we change, but it's a whole lot easier to do it where you're working with your brain and how your brain works than when you're trying to just use willpower or some other method. So anyway, that's it for today, and I hope that you take a trait that you have and work on it. Okay, thank you very much. Subscribe and like my videos, please. Thank you.